How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from Weather Sponge 5000. Today is December 29th, 2021, and today we're going to focus on our next major Midwest snowstorm that could dump up to a foot of snow in some areas in the Midwest. And we will also talk about our next potential Northeast snowstorm that could affect the coastal cities of the Northeast and bring accumulating snowfall for the first time for many of you guys along the East Coast. And we'll also talk about our currently major severe weather threat that's happening in the southeast right now. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather related content. Make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather related content. So let's begin by first talking about the major snowstorm that's expected to happen in the Midwest, and we'll also talk about the possibility of another major Northeast snowstorm that could occur right behind this Midwest snowstorm that's about to occur. So let's begin by right around the 42-hour mark, because right around that point we begin to see an Arctic low begin to move southwestward, and with it, of course, it'll bring a lot of cold air, and it's sort of going to converge with this subtropical low that's going to be located just to the west of California and Baja California, and that's going to create an unstable environment because, of course, when you pretty much mix Arctic low with subtropical low, that pretty much creates a high unstable environment because, of course, the Arctic low is filled with a lot of cooler air, while the subtropical low is filled with a lot more warmer air, and that interaction between the warmer air mass and the cooler air mass will create a very unstable environment throughout the Rocky Mountain ranges of the West Coast. And you're going to see that these two low pressure systems will converge, and as a result, we will see this low pressure system associated with this Arctic low gradually intensify, and we'll start to see this subtropical low sort of jump into where this Arctic low is as a result of the rapid amount of lift that's going on in this area of the continent. And that's where we're going to see the low pressure gradually intensify, and we're going to see the area of precipitation widen as a result of more convection, and as a result more condensation as a result of the amount of lift in the atmosphere. So I've been talking to you guys about this potential snowstorm for I think the past two videos, and I was stating that there was a bit of uncertainty regarding where that rain snow line will be, and the forecast is certainly subject to change. However, the interesting thing I noticed with this snowstorm is that we haven't seen any sort of major changes with either of the computer models when it comes to the exact track of this low pressure system and where exactly the heaviest snow will fall, as the computer models have been pretty stagnant over the past 2 days regarding this snowstorm. And that's definitely good news because it gives us more confidence that this is a exact trajectory that it's going to take, or a very similar trajectory it's going to take, and it gives us more confidence that we're going to see where exactly we're going to see the heaviest amount of snow and the lightest amount of snow. Because, of course, when the computer models are that persistent on an idea that lasts for several days, even if it's within the long-term future, that really shows that the computer models are really digesting the data and really are confident with this conclusion that there isn't really gonna be any major changes with the forecast over the next couple of days, and they don't have any need to change the forecast because right now the data they pretty much ingested was pretty much correct for future reference, and comparing it to historical data, it's very reliable, and that's what we're seeing here. The computer models are just very, very confident with this forecast, as we're going to see heavy amounts of snow throughout the Midwest. This will impact Kansas. Kansas City could get involved in some mixing or maybe even some snowfall, so you need to pay close attention right around Kansas City. Just north of St. Louis, I think St. Louis will primarily miss out on this, but again, even though while I did say the confidence is pretty high, especially since we're only 3 days out and the computer models haven't been changing their forecast over the past several days, we still need to pay close attention if you're close to a rain snow line, because like I said, any minuscule changes can make a big difference in terms of what if you receive accumulating snowfall or just no accumulation at all and just a rain event. It seems more likely, I will say, that St. Louis will still primarily be a rain event for you guys, maybe a little bit of mixing on the backside of this storm where the temperatures do cool down behind this jet stream dip. However, you can't rule out the possibility that maybe the low pressure system moves a little bit further southward than initially anticipated, and you receive a little bit more of a wintry mix or even snowfall accumulation. So don't rule out that chance in St. Louis, but I still will say that it's pretty certain that it's more likely than not you will experience a rain event in St. Louis and not much of any accumulation. But don't rule out the possibility that the forecast could change in favor of snow in St. Louis. But you see that other areas that could get impacted big is Chicago, where you could receive over 6 inches of snow, which would be your first significant snowstorm right around the Chicago area. And even extending as far north as Milwaukee, you're getting involved, potentially close to 6 inches of snow. And a lot of Michigan will get involved. Detroit needs to pay close attention to this. And in terms of the Northeast, so for those hoping for snow associated with this low pressure system as this moves eastward, unfortunately, this doesn't seem like it's going to bring much snow to the Northeast outside of maybe the extreme northern portion of the Northeast. However, there is one caveat, and there's another low pressure system that's expected to form on the backside of this low pressure system. Okay, I didn't show you guys the 18Z run this whole time. I apologize, but like I'm gonna show you right now, the 18Z run is still very, very similar to the 12Z run. So you still should expect heavy snow throughout Chicago. You still should expect heavier snow right around Milwaukee and a lot of Michigan as well, throughout Kansas. Kansas City could get involved in maybe some wintry mix or some heavier snowfall. But like I'm showing you guys, on the backside, we could have another low pressure system that could develop as a result of how significant this jet stream dip is. And we could see another round of snow that will more specifically impact the eastern areas of the Northeast, which include Washington, D.C. This could include Philadelphia, New York City, and even as far north as Boston and the coastal areas of Maine. As you see that right behind this low pressure system, we're going to see quite a significant jet stream dip where potentially severe weather could be the worry. But not only that, since the jet stream dip is so pronounced, we're going to see such an unstable environment in this region, because we're going to see the Arctic air move just very close to how the warmer air mass that's located right around the Gulf Coast states. And that high amount of instability is bound to create enough lift in the atmosphere for another low pressure system to develop. And that's exactly what the GFS model is forecasting, where it expects a surface low to develop quite rapidly, because you see that by around the 86-hour mark or the 87-hour mark, you see that there's no real type of well-defined low pressure system, as pretty much this precipitation is just a derivative of this extratropical, or not extratropical, mid-latitude cyclone moving through that brings heavy snow throughout the Midwest. But you see that this low pressure system rapidly develops once the jet stream dip becomes very, very pronounced, and we do see the millibar pressure drop significantly down to 985 at a relatively quick pace. So we could see this low pressure system go through bombogenesis if this jet stream dip is as pronounced as the GFS model is forecasting. And it's bringing a decent amount of snow throughout the mid-Atlantic states and the eastern portion of New England. So, but again, there's still uncertainty regarding this second low pressure system. While this first low pressure system, I'd say that it's pretty certain you will experience a major snowstorm in the Midwest, or you should prepare from potentially 6 to 12 inches of snow. It becomes a little bit less certain when we're talking about the second low pressure system, because if we take a look at the other reliable computer model, which is the European model, you see that the European model isn't really expecting a second low pressure system to develop, and it's as a result of just not enough of a, or not a not enough of a pronounced jet stream dip associated with this low pressure system. While for the first low pressure system, it seems like the European model and the GFS model are in pretty big agreement of which areas will exactly receive the most snowfall in the Midwest and potentially the Northeast, the extreme northern portions of the Northeast. It's pretty certain that both the computer models are agreeing where how much snow will fall with this first low pressure system. It becomes more uncertain when we're talking about the second one, which in the European model's case doesn't really develop into any sort of snowstorm. We do see a small area, I'd say, of unstable air just along this jet stream, but it isn't enough to develop a well-defined surface low that in the southeast to create potentially our next snowstorm. So there's still uncertainty regarding the forecast when the European model disagrees. What really will determine if this surface low develops in the southeast is how pronounced that jet stream dip will be, and that will pretty much determine if a surface low will develop or not. Because if there isn't enough instability or the jet stream dip isn't pronounced enough for a lot of instability to occur, then we're less likely to see a surface low. But however, if the jet stream dip is more pronounced than expected, then we're more likely to see a low pressure system develop and potentially our next snowstorm for the Northeast. So still a lot of uncertainty. We need to pay close attention to the computer models and see how the weather unfolds over the next several days to really determine if there will be a second low pressure system that will bring heavy snowfall to the Northeast. But I will say for certain that the Midwest should prepare for a major snowstorm associated with this next low pressure system. And for the second low pressure system, you guys at least in the Northeast need to at least be aware of this, because that could be one of our first major snowstorms for the year for the Northeast if it were to come for fruition. Now, you're probably wondering how much snow should you expect from this first snowstorm, as well as potentially our second snowstorm, which could potentially develop if the GFS model were correct, which is still up in the air if the GFS model will be 100% correct. But if we were to move forward with the GFS model's forecast regarding this first snowstorm moving through, let me move to the 18Z run. So this is the latest run of the GFS model. If we were to continue to move forward, you see that there's a large area pretty much extending as far west as the northwestern portion of Kansas, or northeastern portion of Kansas, and as far east as Detroit, Michigan, where you're seeing a large area of 6 to 12 inches of snow. And the heaviest snow is right around the Mississippi River Valley between Iowa, Illinois, and Missouri. So you need to pay close attention to a snowstorm that will dump well over 6 inches of snow throughout the Midwest. So you need to prepare, get the shovels ready for your driveway. And if you plan to go out maybe somewhere right around this weekend, late Sunday into early Monday, you might want to make second considerations, because we could see an extremely major snowstorm, or it's likely you guys will experience a major snowstorm throughout the Midwest. But you're probably wondering, how about this second snowstorm? So if this second snowstorm were to come for fruition and the GFS model was 100% correct, which is very uncertain at that point, and of course it won't be 100% correct, but there's still a possibility it could maybe be around the ballpark. But if the GFS model's case was correct, we do see a pretty large area of pretty much 3 to 6 inches. This includes Boston, New York City's getting involved with right around 2 to 3 inches of snow. Philadelphia is receiving right around 3 to 4 inches of snow, and we're seeing Washington D.C. receiving potentially right around 3 to 6 inches of snow. And in the higher elevations of West Virginia and North Carolina, you could receive over 6 inches of snow. However, there's still uncertainty. So I want to emphasize that, because I don't want to give you guys a false assumption that a major snowstorm is going to come to the Northeast. But make sure to at least be aware of it, because there is certainly that possibility that maybe you could experience even more snow than this, depending on how much unstable air there is. Or there's an equal possibility you might not experience any snow at all if the European model's case is correct and we don't see enough unstable air. So still a decent amount of uncertainty for the Northeast, but I'll make sure to keep you guys updated once we get more updates regarding the snowfall forecasts over the next several days. But now let's take a look at our next subject for this video, which is a severe weather threat for the southeast, because it's certainly very high for today and it could be very high for the future. If we were to take a look at the surface-based convective available potential energy, which pretty much shows how much lift there is in the atmosphere for severe weather to occur, the higher the convective available potential energy, the higher risk you are for severe weather. So if we were to look at the convective available potential energy right now, you see that throughout Louisiana and throughout the Gulf of Mexico, you see it's extremely high for the winter, where we're seeing convective available potential energy levels at over 2,000 in some areas of Louisiana. If we were to continue to move forward, you see that this will move a little bit eastward. So in Alabama and Mississippi, you could get involved in severe weather, and even as far north as Tennessee, where you guys could experience severe weather. And we see another burst come through, and you see that there's going to be a decent amount of convective available potential energy just lingering out around the Gulf of Mexico, which should keep the risk for severe weather there at least over the next 2 to 3 days throughout the Gulf of Mexico. So that's something we need to keep in mind. And if we were to take a look at the precipitation forecast from the GFS model, you see that the severe weather will mainly be right around this area, the worst of it, right around the border of Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama, where you could see a little bit of the ratio or a line of thunderstorms moving through that could potentially bring damaging winds, large hail, and possibly the potential of a tornado, an isolated potential for a tornado. If we were to take a look at the chance of a tornado, the index, I should say, if we were to take a look at that, you see that there's going to be a decent chance of a tornado associated with some of these supercell thunderstorms. And you see that if we were to move forward, pretty much is a scale of from 1 to 10. What's your shot of a tornado, of a significant tornado? And you see that it's pretty much low. There's still a possibility you could experience an isolated tornado. So you don't want to completely disregard the fact that there could be a tornado just yet, because there's still the isolated possibility. But you see in the coming days, the tornado risk does decrease, as today seems to be the highest threat of tornadoes. So watch out if you're right around the southeast for a high tornado risk in those areas. If we were to take a look at the current radar, we do see a line of thunderstorms moving through currently northern Alabama, and the thunderstorms are pretty much right at Huntsville's doorstep at this time. It just passed Nashville, and we're seeing the thunderstorms quickly approach Alabama, which could approach Birmingham and as far east as Atlanta. So you'll need to pay close attention to this for a tornado risk right around the southeast, or damaging wind risk as well, because that's certainly in the possibility over the next several days. And here's the risk for today. You see that there's an enhanced risk right around northern Alabama, northern Mississippi, and southern Tennessee is getting involved in that enhanced risk. Slight just outside of that, and marginal just outside of that as well. If we were to move forward, you see that the chance does decrease for tomorrow, but we could see it increase once again in day 3, as this major snowstorm in the Midwest on the southern side does bring a shot of severe weather. So make sure to keep that in mind right around the Mississippi River Valley, right pretty much in the center of Memphis and beyond that point. And now let me show you guys my snowfall forecast regarding this next snowstorm. So I'm expecting around 6 to 12 inches between Kansas, Missouri, just south of Des Moines, Iowa, and extending to Chicago, and Michigan will get involved in some heavy snow. So make sure to prepare for a major snowstorm. My forecast is pretty much combining what the European and the GFS model are forecasting when it comes to snow. 3 to 6 inches I'm expecting just outside of that, just north of St. Louis should get involved in that, and maybe right around Kansas City you should get involved in 3 to 6 inches of snow, and Milwaukee as well, and Detroit, Michigan should get involved in 3 to 6 inches, and then a small area of 1 to 3 just outside of that, as it seems like there's going to be a pretty big difference in terms of snowfall accumulation depending how north and south you are. They're within such a short distance, because if you only go potentially maybe I'd say like only 30 miles south, you could be going from 6 to 12 inches of snow to potentially no snowfall accumulation at all in some of these areas. So there's a pretty stark contrast when it comes to the forecast snowfall accumulation, which does raise a concern that there's going to be a little bit more uncertainty in the areas where the snowfall forecast difference is so drastic, because any trajectory change can make a big difference in terms of how much snowfall accumulation you receive. However, just stay prepared in case of change in the forecast if you're within this line between 6 to 12 and the 1 to 3 inch threshold, because any small differences can make a big difference in terms of how much snowfall accumulation you receive. And taking a look at the Northeast, we need to pay close attention to potentially major winter storm early next week. There's still uncertainty. There's still a possibility it may not happen, but we need to at least be aware of it in the Northeast. And we also need to pay close attention to the severe weather in the Southeast as well for this week. But yeah, guys, I guess that's it for this video. I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather-related content. And I hope you guys have a good day.